very intimate to me. Okay, so doing things that I love. So my day was okay until a group of friends actually played a very big trick on me and lured me out of my house and then gave me the surprise of my life with a whole celebration. And I was honestly caught very off guard. But again, for me, it was very significant of how much I have grown to also embrace certain certain differences. Usually I am not the kind who would really be very excited being surprised that way. But this time around, I realized, yeah, I was actually very okay with it. And for me, that was also a sign of growth. And then also amongst you fellows, I do see and acknowledge the great things you people are doing and the growth that is happening amongst all of you. And for me, that is such fuel for me to keep doing what I am doing with you people and to allow this program to keep going, but also to be as intentional as I can with the program. So yes, my week was excellent. And also for those who are starting on new roles, really congratulations. I'm very excited for you. I also started on a new role just last month, so you can imagine how it has been figuring out the new job and then keeping up with every other thing that I'm doing. But my encouragement to you is that the going will always have its ups and downs. Some time back when we were talking about the art, the pieces of art that make sense to us, I remember someone referred much to a Ghanaian artist. And part of his art has something that is the symbol of the Nchimchim that symbolizes the twists and turns of life. So for me to you is that yes, life has its twists and turns, but eventually all of these lead us to a definite place where we feel good, we feel fulfilled. But until we get there, really, the twists and turns will always be there. So that is it from me. Back to you, Nancy.
Thank you so much, Dina. It's hard speaking after you've spoken because you just dispense all this knowledge. Thank you so much, and happy belated birthday again. And for all of us, now that we are on board and now that we all know how we are doing, because I don't think all of us go and ask each other how we are doing, but if you do, cheers to you, that's amazing. So our our topic for this month is corruption and good governance. So corruption is a phenomenon, according to what we all know, that we have to delve into because it plays a complex role in the interplay that shapes societies and institutions worldwide. This topic will scrutinize the sustainable development, the public trust institutions, and the equitable distribution of resources, of course. And also, we will look at good governance by contrast, which entails transparency, accountability, participatory decision-making processes that promote efficiency, fairness, and ethical conduct. Now, we may not, go through all of this on the call, of course, but this is what I would expect you to look at, what I would expect you to focus on. And I would also expect you to critically analyze case studies, legislative frameworks, and anti-corruption strategies that undermine the dynamic relationship between that understand the dynamic relationship between corruption and the maintenance of good governance standards for the betterment of Africa at large. Um, Dina, do you have anything to supplement on this?
Just a moment. Okay, yes, I do. So in this new phase of the theme that we are going to delve into this month, it's something that is very present in our everyday lives. And corruption, especially in the sub-Saharan Africa, is a very pervasive issue, and it is significantly impacts pretty much of everything that happens around the state and the status of each country and its citizens. So it goes as deep as affecting the socio-economic developments of a region or a country. And then it goes ahead to compromise the pace of development. Corruption in itself also causes a rising in the level of apathy, especially amongst those who are on the other side, that is not benefiting from it. And we can also say that there has been numerous initiatives and reforms that have been put in place to try and curb corruption. But again, corruption still remains very deeply entrenched in many African countries. And this, in a way, really hinders progress. And it's a great perpetuator of poverty and inequality amongst our nations. And how does corruption manifest? These are some of the questions we should be asking ourselves. Political corruption in our administrative systems, and then we have corruption showing up in even corporate spaces. In the civil society organizations, we have it happening in the judicial systems. But which kind of face does corruption take in these different entities when it is outplaying? And another question that we really need to ask ourselves is, beyond the leaders that we always think are the drivers of corruption, what are the other drivers of corruption in a system? That is when we have to think about weak systems, the absence of political will, and even our cultural practices. I remember one time we were having, during one of our AOBs in the session, I remember asking Bisola if at what point does a gift cease to be a gift and it becomes an act of corruption. So you see, most of us, our cultural practices encourage gifting. And in one way, we have found a way of bringing this gifting thing into our systems. And then another thing that I would love for us to really think through as we interact with the materials, how far are the impacts of corruption? Do you think as an individual, you have in any way been impacted on as a result of corruption? You might not have taken part in the act, but then the outcome of that act of corruption eventually reaches unto you. For example, look at our education systems in Africa. I'll refer much to education because, yes, I am an educator and I'm really passionate in that field of education. What happens if the funds meant for advancing a certain program, let's say digital skills, is misappropriated? And then, of course, a child in one of the lowest income communities doesn't know that there is money that was allocated to them to acquire digital skills. And so they'll not really worry about it because they don't know. But up here, there's someone that has taken that money and what it was meant for is not going to be used, is not going to be used for it. And so in as much as this child doesn't know that, yes, the money was really used somewhere, in the long run, this child doesn't have a skill. And then in the long run, we are ending up with a skills gap in the country. And then how many children have not acquired that skill? We realize we have, if it was a 5-year program, we have a whole 5-year digital skills gap that has happened. So that is how we need to really think about the deep impacts of corruption. And then it also finds its way into our social fabrics. You begin to realize some people will not associate with certain people from a certain group because, yes, those are the ones who are in things, in quotes, I'll use that. And then we'll have people who will say, for us, we are the ones in the thing, so we cannot associate with the other group. And then we end up with heightened cases of cynicism and apathy, and citizens are no longer concerned or excited to do anything that is connected to the state. And then some of the things we really need to also look at are countries that have really tried much to fight corruption. I think one of the countries that is greatly cited is Rwanda, that it has really done much. And then countries that are cited mostly in regards to heightening corruption. Sorry for the Nigerians in the house, but yes, Nigeria is really top of the list. South Africa, and we do have Kenya. I don't know how Uganda survives that list, but but yes, yeah. But yes, we do have countries that are really known for that. And then we do have countries that are really showing effort. And then as we delve into all these other things, we start thinking about what are the efforts that are being put, who are the other actors that are really putting in effort, who really needs to do what, to try and see that, yes, we do have at least a reduction in the levels of corruption, because one who is corrupt most times has no shame. I mean, they are shameless. So you will not just really tell them that, hey, what you are doing is wrong. They have no shame. They don't feel that it is wrong. So it is the way it is. And so we start thinking about which entities are really trying, both at the local level and at the global level, to hold certain institutions to account. So from me, that is really what I want us to deeply think about as we go through this case of corruption. And also to think about, even as an individual, when you're going about with your life's business each day, how often do you get faced with a tricky condition that necessitates you to take the act of corruption, but again, you have to constantly fight for yourself and say, you know what, I shall not do this. How often do you find yourself in such a situation? And that alone should be an indicator of how far the rot is within the system. So that is it from me, Nancy. I hope it shines a little more light into what we are going to be discussing through the month, and also as we wait for the case studies that we are going to delve into and analyze. I hope that gives us more light and more spectrum for consideration while we do our readings and writings. Thank you.
It gives a whole lot of light. I hope you all agree. You surely agree. Thank you so much, Dina. Right now, of course, I'll take the conversation back to you, the fellows, because, we want to know where your head is at. We want to know what you think. So in 1 minute, please, 1 minute, each person from Stephen Ayodeji, in that order, please tell us what you think what you think, what your understanding of good governance is, and if corruption affects good governance.
All right, thank you. I think good governance is one that puts the greater good of the community first before personal gains and dividends. I've been a victim of corrupt practices. Last year, I did a project for someone, and the person did not pay me 3,000 euros. And I left it alone. I left it alone not because I could not make a fuss, but because of some personal inclinations and resolutions that I made regarding the engagement. However, I think that corruption always has a ripple effect. You know, the way we look at climate change and we say, oh, we need to protect the people now and also our future generation. I think that's how corruption in governance affects us now and in the future. So I see it like cancer, you know. And I also think it's a form of it's something that introduced some form of systemic racism. While Dana was speaking, you know, in some sects in the country, at least in Nigeria now, you'll find out that some rich do not want to associate with some poor. And that begins to show how that, you know, there is a segregation. And that in itself is, you know, there's somewhat like a race of rich people. And that desire for riches in itself has caused many people to do things that should not be done. So yeah, it has a ripple effect. And I think it affects us both now and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephen. You brought that right home. Deladem, Jude, you go next and tell us what you think. What is your understanding of good government, and does corruption affect that?
Okay. Am I audible?
A little bit, yes.
Okay. So my perspective on corruption and then good governance is that, in most cases in Africa, I think with the current systems that we have, we should be able to check corruption. Because if you look at most of our constitutions, we are putting, agencies, we separated the powers of government so that other people check other people. We've put in state institutions, public accounts committee, investigative bodies, the police, economic crime, investigators, everything. And we should be able to check corruption. But for some reason, we are not able to check corruption, which I think is very bad. And one of the things I believe is that corruption is able to fight back when we try and fight corruption. Countless of times, the same systems that we are put in place to check the corruption, those same systems are used by the politicians to discount us, to discredit, our claims and our, comments on, corrupt cases. To the extent that you can have, the Attorney General's Department, you can have the court make certain declarations on corruption-related cases, and then you know that, no, you don't feel like justice has been said. And that is one aspect of, the topic that I would like us to also look at. The fact that we are fighting, because if there is a system in place to fight corruption, and that system functions, I don't think we will have a corruption issue, because in America, there's corruption. In Europe, there's corruption. But what happens when they try and fight corruption? They are able to. Nothing impedes them. When there must be accountability, the investigation is done, the report is presented to the public, and everybody can see what is clearly. But in Africa, they sit on reports, you don't get access to documents, even the investigative processes are frustrated. So I think corruption also fighting back, also one aspect that we could consider in our discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You talked about that lack of accountability, and I like that. Now, Angela has just joined the call, but unfortunately, she's the next on my list. So, Angela, I am going to ask you to say something. You're going to tell us what you think of what your understanding of good governance is and if corruption affects that. Please come in right away.
Can I get a minute, please?
You need a minute?
Yeah.
All right, let me go to the next person and you'll speak after that speaker. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, that's good. Elson, come in and take us away. 1 minute though.
I'm not sure 1 minute will be enough, but I'll try by all means to keep it short. I think corporate governance it's a key pillar when we're looking at how whether in a company or a country is being run, because it highlights the procedure steps and that we're supposed to take in order to achieve our goals. So corporate governance, from my own perspective, I think it's important because it sets out certain rules and regulations that we need to follow in order to do something. So when you see you're in a system whereby you do not follow the rules and regulations that are being set out, that means that there's a lot of opportunities for people to misuse that system. So I think just briefly, I think that corporate governance it's actually a key pillar, whether when we look at running an entity or governing a country, because it shows us the path that we're supposed to follow. So in most cases, we see that we have certain rules and regulations that are supposed to be followed, but the challenge is people at the end of the day, they do not follow those rules and regulations that are put in place. That's why we see corruption being high in certain countries, because yes, we have a constitution that we have, but at the end of the day, are we following that constitution? I think that's the greatest challenge that we have. Not that we don't have any rules and regulations, but at the end of the day, is there any accountability when we look at the corporate governance that is being used within a particular country? So I think as long as we have accountability, it then becomes more effective. But when there's no accountability in any system, it then opens up a lot of cans of worms that can expose certain systems to failure. So I think as long as there's proper governance and accountability, we'll be successful. I think my minute is up. Thank you.
Thank you, Elson, for keeping time and everything. So yours is lack of enforcement and accountability opens the Pandora's box. Thank you. Angela, should I skip you or you're
No,
ready?
that's fine. Yeah, I can come in. So I think with that, Elson had mentioned something which has to do with law enforcement and accountability, which was the direction I wanted to equally to. So when you look at Africa, it's not that we don't have any laid down rules and regulations or practices. I think even in the constitution, you would have a lot of rules and regulations and even some punishments or other stuff which comes with deviating from all of those rules and regulations. But personally, I think it's applicable to a certain group of people, but not all kinds of people. You know, so people with power and influences are able to get away with it, and those without it are usually those the law usually take into account. So I think with that, we might have to figure out a way of ensuring that no one is above the law. We hear everyone saying that in most part of Africa that no one is above the law, but at the end of the day, you would find the law being applicable to people who don't have power and influence. But those with power and influence are able to get away from it, which I think is actually sad, because when I got to the US to study, even a lot of people have heard of Trump and the fraud he's going through. Like the law didn't even take into account that he was an ex-president. They had to deal with him. And currently he still have some issues with the court, but because of the presidential elections coming up, they have to suspend it. But that doesn't mean they wouldn't get back to it. They would. So, and you even hear instances or cases which happened somewhere in 90s or the 80s or 70s, but they are still investigating that. And that is what accountability looks like. People know that they cannot get away with anything. Whatever be the case, they would still investigate it. No matter who you are, you would be investigated and taken into account, which is very important. So I think if we are able to replicate that in Africa, this corruption and other stuff which is happening that people of power and influence are able to get away with, I'm sure people would be able to manage that, and they wouldn't necessarily be taking people for granted. Yeah, thank you, and over.
Thank you so much, Angela. You have your things together. You're standing on business. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Kevin. Please come in and tell us what your understanding of good governance is and if corruption affects good governance.
Well, I think both to the parts, corruption and good governance, they have profound impacts in Africa in shaping the continent's development as well as the well-being of its people. And corruption undermines trust in public institutions, it hampers economic growth, and it diverts resources away from critical sectors like healthcare, education, and infrastructure. And it fosters inequality and stifles opportunities for millions. And conversely, good governance also promotes transparency, accountability, as they mentioned, and the rule of law. And in turn, it creates an environment where business can thrive, where public services are efficiently delivered, and citizens can trust their leaders. And in essence, the presence or absence of corruption and good governance significantly determines the quality of life and prospects for future generations in Africa. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I like your submission, precise, concise. Cheers to you. Our next speaker is Leila. Leila, are you on board? I saw you asked a question on the group. Do you understand? Are you following right now?
Yes, right now I'm following it. So my understanding of good governance would say when there is more of a bottom-up approach, and with that I mean that citizens have that their voice like really matters, and that there is a good citizen participation in the countries, as in where you can see that what citizens actually want, they are also helping themselves to get that. For example, by coming together and discuss about their ideas and also implement that with politicians, for example. So yeah, I think when there's more of a bottom-up than top-down approach, good governance will be more achieved. And in that way, I also think corruption will be less, because I do think corruption affects good governance, because everything is being done without people actually knowing what's being done, and then it's easy to corrupt and influence policies, for example. So yeah, but myself, I never really I think I never really dealt with corruption. So all that I know from it is what I hear about corruption, but I can't really have a clear picture of visualization in my mind when corruption happens and how that affects people. So yeah, thank you.
I am so happy that there is someone who has never encountered corruption in this room right now. So cheers to Leila. And, it means that we're going somewhere, right? So Dex, Justin, please come in. 1 minute.
I think you mentioned most of what's on my mind. I just wanted to add on transparency. I don't know if someone already mentioned it, but I think that every government is a good government should be transparent, and transparency, in my understanding, forces accountability. And that's one of the things that is our problems today. Most governments don't want to be transparent about what they do, where they do it, how they make it. And because of that, they go on. And I remember in Ghana, there were so many times electricity system, so many systems they try to digitize and automate using scholars. Most big men in the system refuse this threat to fail is going to come up and stop them from doing whatever they do. Some of them even get the opportunity to go beyond above these systems. We surprised how far they can go. But I feel like every good government should try to be transparent, and that thereby they will be more accountable. Just keeping things. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Andrew, class prefect of the week, fellow of the week, please come in. Andrew?
Yes. Pardon on the question.
The question is, what is your understanding of good governance, and does corruption affect good governance?
For me, I highly believe corruption and governance. Like, for instance, if we talk of good governance, there are things that we look at. And when we come to the aspect of corruption, for me, I believe strongly that corruption affects good governance in a way that the corruption levels can distort what we mean in the decision-making process in the country. Like, for instance, if you look at Uganda, the decisions that are being made are being highly affected by the corruption. And even if you look at the population right now, people have already got tired. And if you look even, just let's draw an example from Kenya, what they did. It's because of the decisions that are being made due to, I'm not 100% sure, because I heard they said Kenya is one of the most, is on the list of the most corrupt countries. So I think the decision makings can be affected. So while are you getting me?
You broke a little bit, but yes, we got the gist.
You're getting me now, eh?
Yes, yes.
Yes, as I was saying, corruption can affect good governance in the way that it disrupts the decision-making process, it will undermine transparency and accountability. And when you come to, I'll give mostly an example with Uganda. We saw, due to corruption levels, we saw the commissioners of parliament awarding themselves abnormal amount of money. I won't mention them one because at times when I mention it, I feel like this is too much. But the level of corruption in Uganda has been highly affected, actually highly affected the governance in many ways. Because first of all, the institution alone, the parliament, we are sending people into parliament who are not competent enough. I'm sorry to say that if at all someone has a relative who is, people from Uganda who has a relative who is in parliament, but the parliament has let us down a lot, starting from the top organ up to the lowest level, in a way that even someone can, I can draw an example again from the late Kato Lubwama when he said, vote me to parliament so that I can also go and eat. So you see such a thing. So we are going to lose accountability, and people are just going to vote him because now the trust we have lost in the institution we are having in parliament is too high. So for me, I believe good governance is being one of we've been characterized by many things such as rule of law, participation of citizens. But if you look at the citizens of Uganda nowadays, we are not participating in anything. The decision making is made by the people already. And then for us, we are just to say, okay, this is what is happening. And then you go back to the recent budget that was passed. Though the president, I'm not sure if he has already signed it. They say there were holes in the budget. There were loopholes in the budget. People were awarding themselves money during the budgeting process. So I don't know if they involved us, the people, and we discussed issues. You never know. Uganda would have resorted into the normal Uganda we know. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you so much. I believe you're going to do incredibly well in the exercise of the month. Thank you. Our next speaker is Omo Bolade. Please come in and tell us what you think good governance is and if corruption affects that.
Okay, thank you. So to avoid being repetitive, I think I agree with a lot of what has been said in terms of what people think good governance is. I think my only addition would be that, to me, when I see the effects of good governance, the way I categorize good governance is how I see how it is affecting like the individuals in the country. So when I say that, I mean that if I'm walking in the streets of, let's say, Lagos, for example, and let's say I'm walking in the evening and like the street lights, there are no street lights, the roads are bad, the rain just fell, there's flood everywhere. To me, I'm seeing the effects of bad governance in Nigeria, basically. So that is a way in which I measure what good governance can be. I think that would be my only addition to what I think good governance is. To me, it's just seeing the fact that the people that are elected as leaders can actually translate their power into developing the lives of the individuals on a very basic level, where you don't need to struggle for basic necessities like light, electricity rather, water, and just the basic things that you need to survive, and like the standard of living is good. That is when I start to say that, okay, yes, this country is experiencing good governance to an extent, before even talking about all the other innovative things that the government can do for a country. And in terms of how corruption has affected me personally, I would say, again, I'll use the example of flooding. So every year in Nigeria, and particularly in Lagos, we have the rainy season, and it's always like, again, that's been exacerbated by climate change, but we always have like heavy rainfall, flash flood, and all of that. And then we have like the national agency that has to do with like what's it called? I've forgotten what it's called, but like the national agency that drops prediction for weather and flood outlook. So they do that every year. They release the reports. They say it's going to flood in XYZ states. And then you see the Lagos government, they have their own environment, what's it called, commissioner as well. And they also issue alerts that, oh, it's going to flood in Lagos, so be prepared. But at the end of the day, the government does little to nothing to actually prepare for this flooding. So we end up having traffic congestion even multiplied by infinity. You see everywhere is flooded. People are literally swimming to work. They can't get to work easily because like everywhere is flooded. There's traffic everywhere, and it just even seeps into people's houses and like affects their houses, and like they end up losing their belongings. And how that is related to corruption is because definitely we have some government agencies that have been allocated budgets to ensure that we are very prepared, like for preparedness and response to natural disasters and like flooding as well. We have like commissions set for that, but they are not doing their job. Because if they were doing their job, we would not be having something that has been happening for like 10 years, and it's like as if it's supposed to, it's now seeming like it's something that is rocket science that cannot be easily solved by just having proper waste management system, and like having like just making sure that we're adequately prepared to respond to flooding. So I think that would be the major example I can give in terms of how corruption has impacted me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Refreshing example. And of course, thank you so much. That hit the point for me. Subilo, thank you for joining the call. I was going to ask you to speak immediately, but I'll have Watanja speak first so that you learn what we're doing right now. Watanja, I want you to give us your understanding of good governance and if corruption affects that. Please come in.
All right. My understanding of how corruption affects good governance. First, let me say I think corruption affects good governance. It affects governance, in every sense. I'm gonna give an example of the health sector. For example, in my country, our health sector is struggling. There are no adequate resources, adequate medicines, and all those things. Even the health force itself, the government is failing to maintain the health force. Why? Because in my country, we're really struggling with corruption, and it's been happening for the past regimes that have been there. It's not just about this government that is there, but because the money that is meant to cater to things like the health sector, to fund the health sector, is being diverted for other personal gains from people who are in power. It affects the funding that is meant to go to the health sector. And in return, it ends up affecting the services that the health sector is supposed to give. Dominantly, the health sector in Malawi is funded by the government. So it's free. It's free for the people to go there and access the services. But in the recent years, we've seen a rise of cases where people have been reporting that they've gone to the hospital, but they weren't able to be given medication as simple as painkillers. They're not available in the hospitals, and they're being told to go to the pharmacy and to buy this medication. And you're looking at people who make less than, is it, no, I'm going to bring wrong fact, but most of the people are very poor. They can't afford to go to the pharmacies to access the medicines that they're supposed to take that is going to help them. And we've had all these cases, even like surgical procedures, they don't have anesthesia to help these people as they're being treated. And all this goes down to the issue that there's so much corruption. It's not that the government doesn't have money. The government keeps borrowing money. Another thing that is also, crippling good governance in this country is the high levels of debt that we're in as a nation. We keep borrowing money. We're not making enough revenue for ourselves to service the loans and the debts that we have acquired as a nation. And on top of that, there's also more corruption that is taking place with the people that are in power, which is directly affecting public service. For instance, as I gave an example of the health sector. So I really do think corruption cripples good governance in so many ways. And I always say corruption is very deadly. We might just look at it on the surface level that, people are stealing, but the money that they're stealing is intended to help people who really need it, like people accessing medical services, but they can't do that because the resources are not there. They've been, depleted by corruption. So the short answer to all of this is to say yes, absolutely, it affects good governance in so many ways. Thank you, and over.
Thank you so much for your contribution. I strongly agree with everything that you've said. I identify with the things that you've said. Now, Subilo, I am going to give you the question again because I believe that the fellows of this call have made it look like I asked what good governance is and giving us an example of how corruption affects good governance. However, I also understand that some of you could not explain it without giving examples. But the question is, right, what is your understanding of good governance, and does corruption affect good governance? Please tell us if you can come in and take us away.
Hey, hi, good afternoon, everybody. Am I audible enough?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, so to answer the question first, my pardon, sorry, okay. So my understanding of good governance, simply I think I would say a government where people are where funds are allocated where they should go, where people are able to access healthcare, proper healthcare and medication that they're supposed to access in healthcare, where there is no corruption. If there is any corruption, the people that are responsible for that being maybe facing jail time and being prosecuted because that is what they probably deserve. So that is my understanding of what good governance is. And do I do I think corruption affects good governance? Of course it does, to a very high degree, so to speak, because also let me give an example of my country currently. I think I even commented this in the group yesterday or the other day about how the previous government was so corrupt, it was so bad that it was these people, like I said yesterday, they bought plots in places like a national park. Imagine having that happen and they are being tolerated. And as a punishment, the new government has not prosecuted anyone. What they have been asked to do is just to surrender the funds that were stolen back to the state, and no one is facing jail time. So that is all like, yeah, so it has affected this government also because we were hoping that they were going to be our redeemer, so to speak, like as far as running a country goes. But then it's still going back to the same things that we were talking about even in the previous government. There's so much corruption. It's what they said that they were not going to do, where people apply for, like SMEs apply for funds. In the previous government, you would actually see that when you apply for funds, there's an authority called TC in Zambia that is supposed to help SMEs with loans funds. In the previous government, you would actually see when you apply for those funds, you will not be given. They will be given to the people that are known, that have people maybe like their dads work for the government and stuff like that. So when the new government came in, they assured us that no, with us that's not going to be happening. But if you ask me today, the same thing is happening. So it's like all that is for me ruining their government, because it's still speaking to what we have gotten rid of. So yes, corruption does affect good governance. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Jude, I am going to invite you later on, but as for now, we have such little time to go. We actually have only 5 minutes. So what I am going to do right now is tell you the assignment of the month, right? Of course, I will bring it to the group as well, but I need to tell you what it is right now, which is the assignment goes: select a corruption case in a country of interest and describe what went wrong and what could have been done better. Okay? Select a corruption case in a country of interest and describe what went wrong and what could have been done. There are also reading points that we're supposed to have. There is Global Corruption, Africa 2019, Citizens Review and Experiences of Corruption. I promise to share all this in the group, so don't worry if you don't get it right now, but I want you to have an idea of what the assignment of the month is and what reading points we have. The second reading point is Mo Ibrahim, AG 2020 Index Report, Executive Summary, and then in Africa of Good Governance and Rule of Law, Citizens' Perspectives. I'm going to share all this information in the group, so don't worry about it if you cannot get it right now, but I will share all that information in the group. For now, I want us to do a very, very, very quick exercise. It was the highlight of my thing. It's what I looked forward to when I was starting this call. I want to know, I want everyone go into the comment section real quick and tell me if you have never participated in an act of corruption. If you've participated, just say yes, and if you've never, just say no. No judgment, but just tell me if you have or if you've never. Real quick. It shouldn't take that long. And meanwhile, let's have Jude say what he needed to say, because your hand was up, and I want to hear you out. You had something to say.
Oh, okay, so I wanted to share my comments on good governance. And I spoke earlier, but I think I did not address good governance in my opinion. And what I think it is that it is the extent to which the rule of law exists in a country, or it functions in a country. Meaning that if the constitution, which is the supreme document, the supreme being of a country, if the extent to which you follow and you apply that constitution should be how good your governance is. It shouldn't just be dependent on a few factors of corruption, or accountability, but it's just the totality of what the dreams and aspirations are of the people, which is written and enshrined in the constitution. So the extent to which you can implement or you can allow the rule of law to function in your country is, in my opinion, the mark of good governance. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Also, why is no one voting? Why is no one saying whether or not they have committed? Okay, if this is so tricky, then I want us to vote on something else. This one is from your judgment and from your opinion as a stakeholder, because you are people who are going to foster the good governance of this continent in the next.
Nancy, I think the answers are coming through. It needed a bit of processing.
It needed a bit of processing.
Yeah. The answers are coming through, except the options. The answers are not really yes or no. There is tricky. I think I have maybe. Kevin says he has bribed a police officer before. He was driving without a driver's license. Man, we have people who are actually very good here. Okay.
Dina, have you ever?
How can I be in Uganda and not be caught up in it?
I think I will also vote yes, but I will not explain my circumstances.
But I also think the trick here is, Jude, it's very private. Chatham House rules. I also think the tricky thing here is all of us are probably looking at being a recipient of the bribe or the giver of the bribe. But again, it gets us thinking how in which different ways does corruption manifest. So we should be able to discern and tell. Maybe you were just sent to go and convince a group about a certain project, which wasn't really real. That is corruption in itself. Maybe you gave someone fuel to speed up a process. You intended it as fuel to help them move, but in actual sense, that is corruption, because what again happens if another person comes, needs the same service, but cannot pay for the fuel? So keep thinking deeply about it.
Also, I also want to ask a question. This one, you can answer it in the comments, or you can, or you can think about it. Do you believe that a country can run or function without some shady business on the side, i.e. without some corruption? if this is just to open up the conversation, really, we can continue with it on the group and later on, but it's also something that you should think about it deeply, because some people say without some shady business, these things cannot go on. And I want to know how deeply you know about these things. But also a question for your conscience, or for later on, if your country fell today and you are at the helm of things, and you are, for example, you're the only person who could become the next president, what would you do to clean up a system or to establish a good system? Do you hear me? Anyone, just turn on your microphone and say, yes, we hear you, or yes, we got what you just said.
Yes, we hear you, but it just feels like a lot of questions at once.
No, but I was going to say, like, I feel like it will be a bit unrealistic to expect corruption to be 100% wiped out in the country, because humans by nature would always want to, not everyone, but like we just live in a world where people would always want to drift into doing illegal in quotes or shady things in quotes. So you can significantly reduce corruption and also put like buffers to ensure that when people do get caught up in the act of corruption, they're adequately punished. But I don't think you can entirely wipe out corruption in a system. So that's to answer one of the questions.
Okay, that's very good. I love this. And this is the type of conversation that I want to hear. I want to hear different arguments, and I want us to continue this conversation in the group. But for now, I think we have exceeded our time. We're supposed to be closing right now. I hope that you do feel better. I hope that this conversation has engaged you people more from the time when you entered the call to when you leave. To when you leave eventually. And also for those who came late, we are so sorry you missed the first part of it, but we were asking how everyone was doing, and we gave different perspectives, and people talked about their achievements here and there, which was a good thing, and what was making them feel down, which was a good thing. I also hope you're all doing well, but now you don't have a chance to tell us because we are ending the call. But thank you everyone for coming in. I am sure you had busy schedules, and I am very thankful that you make up time to come in and discuss the future of this continent. Thank you very much. I'm Nancy Caroline Ayot. For more questions or more conversations, feel free to reach out to me in my inbox. My number is tagged as @Virgo. You can just come in and talk to me. Thank you so much for today, and cheers. I think unless Dina has something to say. Dina, do you have something to supplement? Or we can close?
The rest of the communication I'll take to the group. Most people have already left, so I'll make a communication in the group, but on Monday, for now, everything is okay.
Okay, cheers, bye. Have a good weekend.